Hello and welcome to week 9 lab of ISTripper2. In this lab, we are going to have a look at some more basic SQL commands as in the objectives for this week. There are some notes given in here, and as usual, it requires you to have completed the previous labs, because in all of the labs, we are going to build up on the previous week's work. There are also some links given for your reference. If you need more SQL commands, then you can always have a read through the documentation at these links. I'll open one of these for you so you can have a look. Okay, you can go to the home page and then you can browse through this MySQL documentation. You can go to MySQL server, right? And whatever you need is all here. There's another very good one. It is W3 School. Okay, you can open this as well. Now I really like this one because it is very much beginner friendly, because things are structured very nicely in here. Okay, so from the previous lab, you should be able to connect to your MySQL account using the phpMyAdmin website, we can say. And you should be familiar with issuing the basic commands in the database, such as the create, table, select, insert. Okay, and you should be able to access your phpMyAdmin console. So in this lab, we are going to practice writing some more SQL commands or statements, and then saving the queries. So as we have mentioned in the previous week's lab, you must save your queries somewhere, because once you run them on the database, you get the result of the query, but the query itself is lost. So in your database, only the data is stored and not the queries. So you must always save them, usually in Notepad++. So for this week, we are given this database structure, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables. So before we start writing the queries, we need some data in our database, and luckily we don't have to enter any dummy data ourselves manually. The data is given to us on Moodle. It is under the week 8, week 9 section. Right, you will download this file. It says dblab7_part2. So you will download this file. And if I open this file, okay, it looks something like this. Right, there are some create table, some insert data command. So what this does is it is going to create the tables in our database and then insert some data. Now this file was exported from someone's database, and we need to import this into our own databases. So you can open phpMyAdmin to import this file. And you can go to Genesis, once again, the same link as in the previous week's lab. Now I have this database in here, and inside in here we have one table. This is from the last week's lab. Now for this lab and future labs, I will be using the local database that I have already installed instead of the database on the Genesis server. If you also want to install and use a local database, you can pause this video and watch the other video on how to install the XAMPP database server on your computers, and then come back. If you don't want to install the database on your computers, you can still use the Genesis server. The activities for the labs will remain the same regardless of the database you use. Okay, so if you don't have the local database, you can use this Genesis server. In my case, I have installed the local one, so I will use that. Okay, so to open the phpMyAdmin page, I will click on this button. Right, you see the same page as on the Genesis server. Right, the link is different because they are running on different servers. Right, so this database is running on my PC, and for the labs, I'm going to use this ISTripper2 database. Okay, so I have the same table from last week. So to import that file that we have downloaded from Moodle, right, you will go to Port tab. Right, the same applies for the Genesis server. Everything remains the same except the database that I'm using is different. So click on import, then choose file, and then you will select the file that you have downloaded. Okay, and then you will scroll down and click on go. Okay, so you see a lot of messages in green here. It says import has been successfully finished. Okay, that means we were able to successfully import the data in our database. And now in my database, I have some more tables. So you can also verify the tables using the show tables command. Show tables. Okay, and we get the same result as in here. Right, so now for the remaining labs, I will use mysql workbench. So once again, if you don't have this, you can watch the other video on how to install this. And if you don't want to install this, then you can still continue to use the Genesis server and the PHP myadmin tab. Now, whenever you are writing some queries for the database, then you must always have this schema handy so that you can always refer to this and see how the tables are linked, because that will be easier for us to identify which column is in which table and how they are linked, so that when we are doing some joins, it is easier for us to join the tables. So I'll just take a snip of this. Okay, so going to the queries for this week's lab. So in here we have 16 queries in total. So I will do the first 8. Okay, and then for your submission, you will complete the rest 8 queries and then submit the solution for all the queries, that is from 1 to 16 in the Dropbox. So the first one says write the SQL statement that would be used to create a table the same as the customer table, and the name of the new table should be customer 2. So what I'll do is I'll just copy the command from the file that we have imported, and in here we have a query that creates the customer table. So I'll just copy this, and this is my query number 1. So I'll write this as a comment q1. So it says the name of the table should be customer 2. So everything remains the same except the name of the table, which is going to be customer 2. So in my query in here, I'll replace customer with customer 2. Okay, and then I'll run it. So these are 2 separate queries. Okay, so I'll run them separately. So this is the first one. Okay, run that by clicking on this flash icon, and then you run the second query. If you don't have MySQL Workbench, then to run the query, what you will do is you will, instead of writing in here, you will write the queries in PHP myadmin. So in the SQL tab, you will run the queries from here, just as in the last lab. So paste the queries over here and then click on go, right? So if you are using MySQL Workbench, then you can follow along with me. If you don't have MySQL Workbench, then whatever I will be doing over here, you will do the same thing in the PHP myadmin, that is from here. And if I do a show tables command, then you will see that we have customer 2 here. And then the next one says insert the following data in customer 2 table. So query number 2. Query number 2 is we need to insert this data in the customer 2 table. So once again, I'll copy the command for inserting the data in the customer table, which is here. I'll copy this part. Right, we'll put a semicolon, and the name of the table is customer 2. Data is same in here, looks like 1001 Ramos Alfred A615. Okay, so the data is same. So we'll again run the query. Okay, you will notice there's a green circle in here that indicates that the query ran successfully. And if you want to verify, you can do select command, select everything from customer to right. We have one line in the customer to table. The next one is query 3. So it says in the remaining exercises, you are going to use the customer table and not the customer to. Number 3 says write a query to display the list of all customers, and you should display all the columns of the customer table. So we want to select everything from the customer table. So we will do select everything from customer. Right, star means select all the columns from this particular table. So that was query number 3, quite simple. Query number 4. It says write a query to select the customer code and the customer's name from the customer table. Now this time we only want the customer code and the name from the customer table. So to start with, let us select everything from the customer table, same as query number 3. Okay, run. So we get everything, but instead of everything, we only want the customer code, right? It is cus_code, and we want the customer name. So first name, initial, and last name. But in here, all of those fields are in different columns. So to begin with, let us just select one of those. So let's select customer first name, and let's see what do we get when we run this. So we get the customer code and the first name, but along with the first name, we want the initial and then the last name. So to select that, if I do customer underscore initial, right, we get that, but they are in different columns. But in here, they are in the same column. So we need to join these two, or we can say concat, right? So concat is a function we use to join strings. And if you look at the syntax for concat, right, I'll open this W3 schools website. So this is the syntax for concat. You write the concat command and then followed by whatever you want to join. Okay, so concat, and then in parentheses we write the columns that we want to join. So we want to join the customer first name and initial. So we are going to write concat. Now in this concat, we want to join the customer first name and customer initial. Okay, let's see. So we are getting the first name and initial, but there's a space in between. So we need to put a space as well. So after the first name, we will put a space and then the initial. Now run the query, we get first name space initial, as well as there is this last name. So after this, I will put a space and then customer last name. Okay, so now we get the desired result, but the title of the column is name. So instead of displaying this query in here, we are going to display name as the title. So to do that, we are going to say select customer code, and this part you rename that to name, right? So rename we say S. Okay, and then run. So we get our desired result. Number 5 says generate a listing of all invoices that were created for the customer with customer code as 10011, and the result should look something like this. Now whenever we start selecting something, we must first know where the columns are coming from, or where the data is coming from. So we have invoice number, customer code, and invoice date. So which table do you think we will find all this data? Now, if you look at the schema, we need the invoice number, customer code, and invoice date. So we find all of those details in the invoice table. Okay. Now in here we have the invoice number, customer code, and invoice date, and that is what we need. That means we are going to select from the invoice table. So query number 5. So to begin with, let's select everything from the invoice table. Okay, so we have invoice number, customer code, and invoice date. Right, so we are getting all the result that is there in the table, but we don't want all of these. We only want those which are for this particular customer 10011. Okay, so what we will do is we will say select everything from the invoice where the customer code is 10011. That means we are selecting the data for the customer whose code is 10011. So now if I run this, okay, we get invoice number, customer code, and invoice date, but only for this particular customer, that is 10011. Then number 6, generate a listing of invoice numbers of all invoices that were created on or before 16th January 2004. Okay, so where do you think we will find this data? That is the invoice numbers, of course, in the invoice table. So if you look at the invoice table, right, we have invoice number, customer code, and invoice date. So what we want is we only want to print those invoices which were created on or before this particular date. So once again, to start with, let's select everything and then we'll filter it down. So query number 6, we'll select everything from the invoice table. Right, so we are getting all the data, but we want only those which were created on or before this particular date. So we will say where the invoice date is less than or equal to this particular date. But we cannot just write 16th January 2004 because it has to be in a particular format. Okay, the format is given at the bottom here. It says the format should be the year, month, and then the date. So we are going to write the year, which is 2004 dash, then the month, which is January, so that is 01, and the date is 16th. So dash and then 16, run. So we get 3 lines, but we only want the invoice numbers. So instead of selecting everything, we are only going to select the invoice number. Now run again and we get 10001, 2, and 3, same as here. The next one says generate a list of product codes, descriptions, and prices of all the products that has the price between $15 and $25. So we want the product code, the product description, and the prices of all the products. So we are going to find these details in the product table. Okay, so to start with, let us select everything from the products table. Okay, so we get a lot of details. So what we want from this is the product code. So instead of selecting everything, I will select the product code. Then the product description, and the price from the product table, right? Run. So we are getting the code, description, and the price. but in here we are getting the details for all the products. Okay. What we want is only those products whose price is between $15 and $25. So to filter that out, we are going to say where the price, right? We are going to filter by the price. Okay. We will say where the price is between 15 and 25. So select P code, description, and the price from the product table where the price is between 15 and 25. Now run this and we get only one result over here. Right, so there's only one product whose price is between 15 and 25, that is $17. The next one is finding the lowest price of all the products. So once again, we are going to use the products table because we will find the price details in the product table. So query number 8. So once again, select everything from the product table. All right. Okay. So we get all the details. We only want the price. So instead of selecting everything, I will only select the price. Okay. Once again, run. So we are getting the prices of all the products, but we only want the minimum one. So if you look at this, what do you think is the minimum over here? Maybe 4.9. Okay, so let's use mysql to get that. So there is a function in mysql that is called min. So if I run this on a particular column, I will get the lowest value from that column. So select the minimum price from the product and we get 4.99. Okay, so that was all from for my part. You will do the remaining queries from 9 to 16. But I'll give some hints on how to attempt these queries. And number 9 says list all the customers whose first name starts with the letter I. Okay, so I will find this detail in the customer table. Okay, so we can say query number 9. So select everything from the customer table. Okay, so let's see what do we get. So we get all the details. Okay, so we want all the customers, but in here what we will do is we will filter those whose first name starts with letter A. So what you will do is you will write a where clause, right? And you will say something over here to select only those customers whose first name starts with letter I. And in here you are going to use the like command, the like operator. And the syntax for the like operator you can find over here on this W3 schools, like mysql. So this is how the like operator is used, right? You can have a look over here. You will write where something and then like, and then you will write the pattern, and all the pattern details are given here, right? For example, if you want values that start with I, then you will write like I and then modulus. Okay, this percent symbol. And then number 10, generate a list of invoice numbers, the invoice date, the codes and names of customers, and the result should look something like this. So we want the invoice number, invoice date, customer code, and the name. Now, where do you think we will find the invoice number? So invoice number is in the invoice table. Okay. Invoice date, again, that is in the invoice table. Customer code, again in the invoice table. So we are getting all the details from the invoice table except for this customer name. That is not in the invoice table, and that is in the customer table. So in here we need to select the data from two tables, that is the customer and invoice. So how do we select data from two tables? So in here, we are going to use the join command. So your query will look something like this. For number 10, you're going to say select something, okay? Select something from some table, right? And then you will write in a join some table on some column, and then you will get the details. Then for query number 11, it says generate a list of customer code, first name and last name from the customer table. So we want the customer's code, first name and last name, and that is coming from the customer table. So let's select everything. Okay, so we are getting right, so we are getting all the details from the customer table, but we only want the customer code, first name and last name. Customer code, first name and last name. Okay, so you will only select those columns, and then at the end you need to sort the list by the customer's last name in decreasing order. So once you get the list, you will sort the data by the customer's last name, and it should be in decreasing order. Number 12, generate a list of customer code, first name and last name from the customer table, and sort the list by the customer's last name in increasing order. So same as query number 11, but the order will be different. So in here it was decreasing, over here it is increasing, and you are going to use the order by clause. Number 13, display the line totals of each line in invoice 1003. So we want the line totals for each invoice. So if I look at the invoice table, so where do you think we will get the line details? If you look at the schema, so we want to get the total, that is the price. Okay, so price total. Now if I look at the line table, we have line units and we also have line price, but it is not visible here. So let me select the data from the line table. Okay, so if I select everything from the line table, we get something like this. We get the line number, invoice number, product code, line unit, and line price. So what this means is, in this particular invoice, right, in a line number 1, this product was sold, right? One of this product was sold, and the price of each product was $14.99. This one, so 2 of this product was sold, and the price of each is $14.99 or $4.99. So what we want is, we want to get the line total. That means to get the total for a line, you will do line unit times line price. So if I want to know the total for this line, I will do 1 times 14.99. For next one, 1 times 9.95. For this one, 2 times 4.99. So that is going to give me the total for each line. So what we will get over here is the line total for all the invoices, but we only want the total for the invoice number 1003. So after you select the details, you will say where the invoice number is 1003. Then for query number 14, it says what is the total sale what is the total sale the company has made so far. So total sale, how do you get the total sale? So if I once again look at the invoice table or the line table, so select everything from the line table, right? So to get the total sales, what you will do is you will get the line total first, that is multiply line unit by line price. So that is going to give us the line total, and then to get the total sales we are going to add up the line total. That means 1 times 14.99 plus 1 times 9.95 plus 2 times 4.99 plus so on. So at the end you are going to get the total sales made by the company, and for that you are going to use a function called sum. And then number 15 says what is the average sale for the company. So this is very similar to number 14. So instead of using the sum function, you are going to use the average function. And then lastly, number 16, display the invoice numbers and the invoice totals for all invoices. So we are going to get those details from the line table. So we want the invoice numbers and the invoice totals for all the invoice. So the totals, we know it is in the line table because invoice table does not have any price details. That is in the line table. So the line table has the invoice number, the line number, line unit, and line price. So we can get the line total for each invoice. So what we will do is we are going to select the invoice number, right? Because we want the invoice number and the invoice totals for all the invoice. So to get the total, we have seen how to do the total. You will do line unit times line price. So you will multiply the two and then sum up the line totals. But in here, we want to sum not the entire column or the entire line total. We only want to sum by the invoice number. So you will sum the lines which belong to different invoices. And for that, you are going to use the group by clause. So what it's going to do is it will take different invoices and then sum the lines in that particular invoice. Okay, so that was all for this lab. So once you are done, make sure to save this file. All right. Make sure you have the comment and the corresponding query for the particular question. Right, so I have given some hints for question numbers 9 to 16. You can follow that and attempt the queries. Okay, so that's all for this lab. Thank you for watching.